Okay, first all community call of the year. Again, Happy New Year. I am very much looking forward to hopefully later in the year meeting you guys, you folks all in person again. It's been a while, but our community continues to grow. We're very well positioned as an open source community to continue operating in a completely remote fashion. And so I'm happy to give you a few updates today. James, if you want to flip to the next slide. I'm going to try to keep it uncharacteristically brief from my side because, the most important part of this all community goal is, as usual, to hit it from our project teams and lead maintainers. There's so many exciting updates throughout our projects and special interest groups. So we have a pretty packed agenda, and my goal is to keep it brief and short and give you a quick update on Q4 and the many things that happened then, and giving really an outlook on 2021. And we just came out our governing board meeting last week. So there's a few goals and guiding principles that I'd like to share with the community, again, in the spirit of all pushing in the same direction and aligning to what is looking like another fantastic year of growth for FINOS. Thank you, James. You can go to the next slide. I'm Gabriele Columbro, Executive Director. So we've had Q4, not only we had a very successful OSSF, we'll quickly touch on that later, but we continue to grow both our membership representation as well as our projects. We now have over 40 projects between active and incubating in FINOS, and now, as of last week, 3 special interest groups, which are really helping us expanding into new areas of such a wide industry like financial services. We're very excited to also have welcomed in just Q4 a new platinum member, Accenture. Since the last time we spoke in this community call, I believe we didn't have one in Q4 as we had our OSSF. We've also added Intel, Suse, diffblue, and also 3 associate members. You probably were familiar with AIR for our work on open source regulation, but we've also now built relationship with the InterWork Alliance and with ISDA, the International Standards Swaps and Derivatives Association, which, as you might remember, we work very closely with on our legend pilots. So before we move to the next slide, I continue to, when I look at this slide, I don't see just pretty logos. I think it's very, representative of the corporate diversity that we have in our foundation between financial institutions, big tech vendor, open source vendors, fintech vendors. I think we continue to show that this is a foundation that is open and inclusive and can deliver value to pretty much any constituents in this industry. And so again, thank you to all of you, whether you are contributors or whether you are members of our foundation. We are very thankful for, not only trusting FINOS with your sweat equity, but also continuing to advocate for us and growing our foundation this year. You want to go to the next slide, James? So we had a really busy quarter in Q4. As you might remember, earlier in 2020, starting from our projects and SIGs, we did introduce the concept of special interest group. This was a new concept for FINOS. It is really a way to coalesce interest across common, sort of across different firms on a specific common topic. And really what we're realizing is that special interest groups are a great engine to discover common interests and then, sort of working in the problem space and then actually trigger the creation of new projects and new standards that become very valuable and much sort of easier to adopt given the interest that gets built into the special interest group. And so I want to send a shout out to the DevOps Mutualization Working Group, which is gaining steam. It's been also mentioned in Forbes, I believe, earlier this month. We look forward, to not only solve regulated industries' specific problem in the CI/CD toolchain, but also to collaborate with our sorry, folks, running out of voice, and it's only 7 a.m. But to collaborate with other sister foundations, like, for example, the Continuous Delivery Foundation in the Linux Foundation. We're particularly very excited about the Regulation Innovation Special Interest Group, which was really a result of the major interest that we've seen in applying open source to solving common regulatory compliance and regulatory implementation problems. This is going to be a theme that you continue to see throughout 2021, and so again, very, very excited. We've brought in OpenMAMA under our umbrella, and we continue to grow, again, our footprint, both in terms of marketing, podcast, community spotlight. We're going to hear from James later this year, later today. We continue to add focus on our contributors. You are the engine of our community, and so we want to make sure that to the extent that we can, we continue rewarding and incentivizing and, again, thanking you for the contribution to our community. Next slide, James. Thank you. Before I hand it off, I have two quick slides to show you. I'm not going to go through all of these guiding principles, but I think it was useful to share them with you, with the community at large, in the same way we share them with our board. These guiding principles are the ones that ultimately drove the creation of the objectives and the strategy for us this year. I want to point out a couple of highlights here that are more relevant to you. First of all, 2020 has been a huge year for us in terms of banks actively contributing to the community. We now have at least 5 major financial institutions actively contributing code, both net new code and to projects that were originated from other institutions. This is almost unprecedented in this industry, and so we're very proud. We think that this means that in 2021, we have the opportunity of focusing on our existing projects, our existing members. Of course, this doesn't mean that we're not going to continue growing our project portfolio and our membership, but we want to double down our efforts to make sure that our projects are successful. It doesn't just take throwing a project on GitHub to make it a successful open source project. And we think now we have enough of a deep, broad portfolio to make sure that we drive them to success. The second point I want to touch here is really the value for the business. As a vertical foundation, we are different from other foundations. Of course, through our open source readiness program, the recently approved InnerSource Special Interest Group, our cloud certification effort, we will continue running initiatives that enable the technology organization and deliver value to technologists. But as a financial services focused foundation, our goal this year, especially with firms actively contributing and a project portfolio that continues to grow, it's really to focus on solving long-standing industry challenges and using open source and open standards really as a mean to an end. So you'll see more of this focus, including, for example, our focus on regulation. We will work with the Linux Foundation to surface adoption. We know that our projects that are standard are used way more that oftentimes we're able to measure or to realize. And so we're asking for your help. If you're using any of our projects or of our standards, let us know. Let us work with your firm to put your logo up there. This is going to be fundamental to continue growing the flywheel of the community. In terms of our focus, FinTech and regulators are the two new sort of messages and value proposition that we're looking to develop even further this year, in addition to the now very established value for financial institutions. Do you want to move to the next slide, James? So I'm not gonna go through this. Well, there's a little bit of an eye chart here, but we have. I wanted to remind you what are the expectations really to run our community in a successful way. And there are four main actors. You know, we have now, this is our first year as a full year as a foundation under the Linux Foundation. So we can expect a whole lot of tooling, project collaborations, training, and value-add services coming right from the LF. And if you have ideas on how to best leverage those services, please let us know. But the two areas that I wanted to point out where we have had pretty deep conversations with the board. First, the balloon on the right. As you know, as a community, we've always promoted self-sufficiency of our projects, and we continue to do that through project enablement. James is going to give you a much more detailed view of what that means in 2021. But we realize that it's often hard to assign project coordination resources in addition to development, release, and really just leadership and advocacy to your projects. So after a board conversation, I'm happy to share that FINOS will hire project coordinators to help you continue progressing in your projects and allow you to focus on what truly is the goal of a lead maintainer, developing great code and advocating for the growth of its community. The second point, and then I'm going to close here, is we realize that we have an important role in working with our board, with your member representative, if you're a member, to sustain the initial investment on contributions. It's important that once a firm open source a project, there is the internal buy-in, both in terms of adoption and in terms of sustaining and rewarding individuals that are ultimately working on the day by day on those projects, and therefore that make up our community. So I just want to say, if you are experiencing issues in terms of the internal support for your open source activity, please let us know. We can hopefully help out and connect with, if you're a platinum member or a gold member and you have a board member, we can work through that. But we understand that sustained investment is really the only way to have a successful and run a successful open source projects out there. So with that, I think I am at the end of my slide, James. So thank you so much. I might have to drop in a few minutes, but I'll certainly be here for the next section. Thank you.
Gab. James, okay if I pick it up from here?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So I'm Tasha Ellison. I'm our Chief Operating Officer. It's good to see you all here this afternoon. If you want to skip to the next slide, I'm going to just touch on a few things related to marketing, mostly marketing, because James is going to cover much more on the community. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of our successes last year and how we're going to continue to build on that in 2021, starting with podcasts. So we introduced a podcast series last year, the FINOS Open Source and FinTech podcast, and we have more than 15. And we've seen really quite good uptake on that, and certainly something that we want to continue with this year. And last year we covered topics on our projects, new developments within open source, new things that our members are doing in open source, as well as some of the journeys to to open source projects for the first time, and so some really interesting and compelling conversations as well. And so this year we definitely want to continue to explore that and maybe mix it up a little, have some briefs, have some more in-depth conversations, and we'd also like to do add our community views. So we'll be reaching out to the community over the next weeks and months to get your input and feedback. And if you do have any ideas, and I'm going to say this multiple times in my couple of minutes, feel free to email us at marketing@finos.org, or you can raise an issue in our community repo, which we can give you the link, and we'll also talk about this again throughout the presentation this morning. I also wanted to touch a bit on events and meetups. As Gab mentioned, we had a very successful open source strategy forum. It was virtual, which isn't really our ideal, and fortunately we had the Linux Foundation to help us make that transition. This year we will do an open source strategy forum again. We'll also have members meetings in both London and New York. Our plan is to have them in person, but there's the environment's changing on a regular basis, sometimes better, sometimes worse. So we'll remain flexible and agile, and we'll do it in person if we can. Otherwise, we'll certainly have some virtual events. And for our meetups, it's the same thing. So we'll continue. Last year we had a number of meetups, which was great, and we'll continue that this year. We'll do them virtual for now, and as soon as we can go in person, we will go in person. And one other thing that I wanted to touch on is that this year we also want to, we had some great successes last year, which you'll hear about from Claire Cox from Scott Logic and from Andrew King about partnering with other individuals and organizations to run meetups. And we definitely think that there's great opportunity to do more of that. So I'm going to hand over to Andrew and Claire in just a moment. And just before I do that, I also wanted to mention that we're getting some great recognition in the news and with some awards actually for all of the work that we and our community do, because of course without our community we're not much. But we did win the Waters Technology American Financial Technology Awards 2020 for the Best Collaboration Initiative, and that was specifically focused on the work around the Legend pilot, which involved many members of our community and of course Goldman Sachs. So it's really great to get that recognition. And so FinTech Future's Banking Tech Awards, we were highlighted as a FinTech of the Future. Gab was highly commended for his tech leadership. And James has been recognized as an Open UK influencer for 2021. So it's really nice to see people recognizing the value that open source can bring to financial services. And so we want to continue to spread the word. We want your input. Email us at marketing@finos.org, and come do a meetup with us. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Andrew King to talk a little bit about the first meetup we had that he led for us in the Asia Pac region.
No problem. So Tosha, looking down the list of participants, I'm actually going to talk on Andrew's behalf. I had a chat with him last night, and Andrew's actually in Australia, and so it's 1:30 a.m. His time.
Sorry, thanks, James.
No, and that's absolutely fine. He's also looking after his kids and homeschooling, and so he said that he may not be able to make it. But so Andrew King's from Sweet to Go, and he stepped forward to FINOS to say that he's noticing a real swing in the fintech and banking direction in the APAC region, and he would like to start a meetup a FINOS meetup in that region, which we actually did at the end of last year. So in November, the APAC community actually featured the FDC3 team. So Rico and Chris joined to give demos and also an introduction into FDC3. The actual meetup was conducted from London, but we dialed into the meetup that was actually, for the APAC community. And so there are a number of us waking up at 5 a.m. whilst other people are leaving work in Australia. We're actually organising the next APAC meetup for March. And so if people have any colleagues or anybody else in the APAC region, so Australia, and the Asia region, feel free to put them in contact with us and we'll invite them to the community, which we actually build through the finos.org website. And so with that, I believe we have Claire on the line. And so Claire, if you'd like to come off mute, and we'll move on to the UK meetups.
Yeah, hi, thanks, James. So my name's Claire Cox. I work for Scott Logic. For anybody who doesn't know Scott Logic, we are a technology consultancy that builds bespoke software solutions for our clients who are primarily in the financial services. So we partnered with FINOS just over a year ago to start the UK open source FinTech meetup. We started that in Edinburgh, shortly followed by London, and we've recently added Bristol because Bristol has a really vibrant FinTech scene. The plan is to start the next one in Leeds this year. We've already built a community of just under 1,500 members so far. We're hoping to get back to physical events by hopefully about September onwards. When COVID struck, like everybody else, we had to quickly adapt and move our events online. When we do go back to physical events, the idea is we're going to almost run these roadshow style. So we're going to rotate the locations and then we're going to live stream so that we can continue to engage the entire community. The next event is on February the 11th, which is about how to create a data mesh with open source tools. You can see the link there. If you'd like to join us. If you want to get involved more widely, obviously there's the links to join the regional meetup groups there. There's also a list to the videos. We record all of the sessions, whether they're virtual or the in-person events, so you can look through some of the videos and see the kind of talks that we have at the events. I've included my email address because we're always looking for speakers for the events, and when we get back to live events, we'll also be looking for organisations to host as well. So there's a number of ways that you can get involved, and I think that's about 2 minutes. You must be proud of me, James. You've never known me talk for such a short amount of time.
So that's amazing. Thank you very much, Claire. And as Chris has actually distributed these slides over social, so I think that you'll be able to find them on LinkedIn. You'll be able to get all of these links and all of Claire's details as well. It's a very recommended meetup. So that actually brings me on to myself, where I'm going to talk about the FINOS community and what we've been doing. So I'm James McLeod, Director of Community, if people haven't been introduced to me before. And the very first thing that I'd like to say is throughout 2020, we've wanted to really cast the spotlight on the FINOS community and all of the great work that people have been doing within their teams. We're very used to, talking about the success of projects and how projects are actually being used and contributed to by the, community at the high level. But the FINOS Community Spotlight and the OSSF Awards are a real opportunity for us to, look at the people who are doing those contributions and really talk about their stories and everything that they've achieved. And so I'd like to say thank you to Adam, David, Jessica, Ingrid, Attila, Daniela, Alfred, and also Claire and Paul, who have been running the UK meetups, for all of the work that they've been doing whilst we've been running the Community Spotlight. And also keep an eye on all of our newsletters moving forward, because the Community Spotlight throughout 2021 is something that's going to be ongoing. And we've actually scaled it out now. So whereas before we've been using FINOS data and all of the insights that we have about our projects in order to highlight the work that people have been doing, you'll notice that within our community repo, which is on GitHub, you can now actually raise a FINOS community recognition GitHub issue, which means that if you're working within your projects, and you don't need to be a lead maintainer or maintainer to do this, you can actually recognize all of the activity and all of the contributions that your peers are doing. So this is a real good way to really kind of, get into the communities and really show what people are doing by raising the recognition, tagging their GitHub profiles, and letting us know who they are and what they're doing, and featuring them on Community Spotlight, and awarding them with swag and other goodies. Now, in the same way as using the whole recognition system, so the whole Spotlight and awards, we actually want to, within FINOS, really focus on our recruit, our reward, and our retain aspect of FINOS. And so we've been looking at a particular flow that will capture all of those great contributors who are coming into the foundation and joining our projects and our SIGs and all of our initiatives, in order to say hello, and welcome them into the foundation, and then use initiatives like Community Spotlight and OSSF awards in order to kind of recognize the people who are doing great work here and now within the foundation. But also we recognize that people do leave the foundation, they do leave jobs, or they move on to other things. And so we're going to be working with our maintainers to really know when people are kind of moving away from projects, maybe not on their own accord, maybe there's something else behind it, and getting in contact with them and making sure that everything's okay. And when people come back, making sure that we give them a warm welcome back to the foundation, in order to really drive that warm community that is all about bringing people into FINOS, getting people contributing into the industry, rewarding people for all of the hard work and initiatives that they're taking, and in order to really build that community spirit. And with that, we're passing some of this, knowledge and experience over to our maintainers and our projects in order to create a sense of self-sustainability. So rather than everything being run by the FINOS team, or, us kind of like coordinating this, we're going to be passing our knowledge and our experience to our teams so they can work with us in order to help, make sure that people feel recognized and warm and enjoying their experience within FINOS as well. And we'll provide all of the recognition and highlighting people as and when is needed in the right way. So with that, I'm really pleased to welcome people from within our projects and within our SIGs, and also within our community, to give updates from what's happening on the ground. And so our very first update is actually coming from Attila from within Morphir. So Attila, if you're able to come off mute and give your update, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. My name is Attila Mihai. I work for Morgan Stanley, and I'm one of the creators of Morphir. So let me start by saying a few words about the project itself. So, in the financial services industry, we have mastered the art of processing data algorithmically. Morphir allows you to take that a step further and also process business logic algorithmically. So it does that by turning business logic into data. And once you have that data, you can unleash your creative powers to process it in very exciting ways. So, for example, you can visualize it to turn black box logic into insightful explanations for your business users, translate it into executable systems, and move between languages and platforms effortlessly as technology evolves. And you can also share it across different departments or organizations for consistent interpretation. So the core of Morphir is ready for use, but we need you to make it a real success. We need contributions. Morphir has a lot of potential to enable new initiatives, like the RegTech initiative that needs a portable data structure that can be translated into various technology platforms for consistent interpretation. So exactly at the core of what Morphir provides. or things like the integration with the Legend project, which could expand the capabilities of both of those platforms. So I would like to encourage you to check out the project. It's very likely that you will find something interesting. We have a few examples of the kind of problems that we are trying to solve there. So we have really exciting challenges ranging from language processing tasks like building interpreters and code generators, all the way to exciting visualizations like turning complex if-else expressions into decision trees that are easy to understand for business users. So yeah, I'd like to encourage you to just check it out and reach out to us.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Attila. I really appreciate that. And please go to the FINOS organization and check out the Morphir project. And now we go over to Eddie Knight and also maybe Lee for a cloud service certification update. So Eddie, if you're able to come off mute.
Yeah, it's just a matter of finding the buttons, I suppose.
Well done, I can hear you.
All right, let me actually turn on my camera as well. So over at the cloud service certification project, a lot of people have been very, very active that aren't named on this slide, especially the folks from Deutsche Bank. Abdullah, Daniela, and Peter have all been really, really active in setting up a foundation. Recently, Alfred Tommy has come in and actually put up the first big set of infrastructure as code. That's kind of the core and the crux of what the cloud service certification is trying to accomplish, is to create these recommended infrastructure as code resources that financial service institutions can use. And myself and Lee Faust are working on building some verification and validation resources that can be put in place to make sure that as we're adding more and more of these Terraforms and CloudFormation resources, that they can be verified that they're actually functional before they're committed, and then we can spin it up and run prober across it to make sure that the resources that are active and are deployed are meeting certain standards, like the CIS standards and benchmarks that are in place. So that has recently really started to hit the ground running, and it's been really fun to be part of. So we're excited to keep moving forward with the BDD investigation is the thing that I'm most involved in. But it's going really well. It's really fun. That's your update.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, Eddie. And it's so great to be part of cloud service certification and seeing people, testing and learning different mechanisms for delivering the full flow of the GCP GKA user journey. And so thank you very much for your update. And now we go over to the currency reference data team. So I believe Vijayesh is on the call to give the update. If you're able to come off mute. Maybe we're having a few technical difficulties there. So I don't know if Aitana or anybody else is able to come in and give the update on Vijay's behalf.
I see Vijay on, but yeah, maybe there's an audio issue. I can give an update. So this is a project that originally spun out of some of the pilot work done around the ISDA CDM, and it builds on the existing ISO currency codes. So this is about extending currency reference data to make processing easier and to make normal work lifecycle processes more consistent and easier to manage. And so the group has been building out additional fields related to currencies. There's been contribution from a number of different banks, as well as ISDA. And you can see, it's a little bit smaller, but you can see the model and the different types of values that are being discussed. And so the model is pretty well done. We could really use, the group could really use some input from SMEs, subject matter experts on currencies, specifically how you use it, how you use NDFs or various other elements, whether it's currencies onshore, offshore, and how to represent that best. So please do, you can read about it in the, you can read about current status and discussions in the repo. And if you would like to get involved, please join us at the next meeting on February 9th, or put a comment or an issue on in the GitHub repo as well, and someone from the project team will get back to you.
Thank you very much, Tosha. And this is where I hand over to Mal. He's here to talk about the Git Proxy project.
Thanks, James. Can you hear me?
I can, absolutely.
Fantastic. So, hi everyone. I'm Mao, DevOps Director at FINOS, and I'm also part of the Git Proxy team. I'll provide an update on behalf of Paul Groves, who's the lead maintainer from Citigroup. For those who are unfamiliar with Git Proxy, Git Proxy stands between the developer's workstation and an open source project code repository, delivering a UI for manual review workflows and automated checks, as you can see on the screenshot on the top right. So we enforce compliance while keeping a lean workflow for developers, which can actually pull and push code against a public Git endpoint. So Git Proxy aims to bring a simple and practical solution to one of the biggest challenges we at least witnessed at FINOS for financial institutions when contributing to open source software, which sounds actually almost too good to be true. So last quarter, we completed the FINOS contribution process. So the project is now hosted on github.com/finos/gitproxy. It delivers most of the features needed to run an initial MVP. And we expect the code to be ready in actually the next 2 or 3 weeks, which will enable financial institutions to run this behind their corporate firewalls and provide feedback. For this quarter, our goal is to increase the number of project participants and early adopters. And we have 2 meetings being scheduled to gather this interest. Tomorrow, we will hold a kickoff call at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And on February 3rd, at the same time, Paul will present at the Open Source Readiness meeting. So if you want to know more, make sure you join one of these 2 calls, and you can check the details in our project calendar. If you already know that you want to be part of it, probably the best way is to fork the repository, play with it, submit pull requests and issues. If you prefer emails, you can use odp@finos.org to send messages. That's it from me. Back to you, James.
Thank you very much, Mal, for that Git Proxy update. And now we go over to Amul within DevOps Mutualization Special Interest Group. Amul, I believe that you're on the line if you'd like to come off mute and say hello.
Yes, thanks, James. Hi, everyone. I'm Amul Shukla. I'm at Morgan Stanley, and I'm the lead for the DevOps Mutualization Special Interest Group, which was added to FINOS in Q4, as we heard earlier from Gabe. The SIG is really intended to provide a platform for the members to share their approach on how DevOps adoption can be accelerated while providing, obviously, the continuous compliance and assurance that many of our banking members need. The goals are to actually develop a common understanding of DevOps practices, tooling, and projects across banks, and then use that to influence the ecosystem around DevOps and cloud, especially in terms of what vendors provide, and then also document the common approaches that are used to ensure compliance and assurance across banks. Based on the 2020 sort of Q4 member feedback, we've identified 2 themes that we'll be focusing on, at least in the first half of this year in the SIG. The first is basically identifying the different type of evidence artifacts that need to be produced and stored for SDLC and change sort of deployment processes at banks. And the second one is around how banks are actually orchestrating their existing self-service workflows around DevOps. We absolutely look forward to contributions really from the community. And really the best way to contribute is to join the next meeting. Our next meeting is going to be on February the 18th. All of our meeting minutes are on the GitHub repository that's shown on the slide deck here. And you can obviously also raise issues or add comments to provide your feedback and perspective on the existing issues on the GitHub repository. And there's also the mailing list that's shown here to have discussions as well. And again, we absolutely look forward to feedback from the member community for this special interest group. So that's everything from me. James, back to you.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, Amal. And just to reiterate what Amal was saying, the majority of the projects that we have who actually have in-person meetings over WebEx, they actually have all of their agendas within their GitHub issues. So certainly within DevOps Mutualization and also cloud certification and others, if you look in their GitHub issues and look for a meeting label, you'll be able to see the meetings that have happened previously and also see meetings that are coming up soon. And all of those projects and all of our projects certainly do like people getting in contact with them and getting involved. So feel free to scout around on the FINOS organization on GitHub and take a look inside, all of the projects and all of the issues for everything that's happening. And now we go over to a new special interest group. So this is the InnerSource SIG. So I believe that Claire Dillon and Denise Cooper are on the line to give the update from the team.
Thank you, James, and thanks for having us here. So my name is Claire Dillon, and I work with the InnerSource Commons organization, and we are absolutely delighted to say that we've been delighted with the interest in terms of the growth of InnerSource interest in both the InnerSource Commons, but also with FINOS members over the last while. And in the just last week, in fact, we have got approval for the InnerSource SIG at FINOS, working with an amazing leadership team, including the leads, Daniela and Arthur, and a wide range of folks that are coming to be part of the leadership team for the InnerSource SIG. The goal of the special interest group is to create that safe space to identify and share challenges and solutions that accelerated organizations, FinTech organizations, to implement InnerSource within their organizations. And we are hoping to collaborate with that broader FINOS community to share the outputs. We know we've had a great interest from the open source readiness group so far in terms of the events we've run so far. And we're hoping to continue that in the future, that collaboration with the open source readiness group as well. And we also hope that we will continue to work with the InnerSource Commons organization by sharing relevant outputs upstream. We're in the very early stages of SIG setup, having only been approved last week. So our next steps are certainly to work with FINOS to move through these the operational steps to set up the SIG. And if you are interested, please follow the work and the progress at the GitHub issue that I'll share in the chat as well. And we're looking forward as well to continue our collaboration with the open source readiness group in terms of events we'll put on over the next few months. So we're delighted to be peer and part of the community, and we're looking forward to working with you all and learning from you all in terms of the great work you've been doing in the other SIGs. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to say thank you very much to the FINOS community and everybody who's been standing behind the InnerSource SIG and giving all of your support. So the issue at the bottom of this slide, so issue 84 in the community repo, is actually a socialized SIG issue where loads of people have given all of their positive comments and thumbs up and approval to the creation of the SIG. And so I'd like to say thank you to the InnerSource team. So Daniela, Arthur, Claire, Aaron, Anthony, Denise, and everybody else who's been involved in setting up the SIG, but also to everybody else who's been getting involved through OSR, so open source readiness, and have just been, putting their thumbs up against this this socialization issue on the FINOS community. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing the output from the SIG in the near future. So moving on, alongside asking all of our various different project teams and SIGs for their updates, We also had a member of the FINOS community step forward to ask a question to everybody. So Daniel, if you're on the line, feel free to come off mute. I don't want to ask your question on your behalf, but feel free to come off mute and ask away.
Thanks, James. So hi, everyone. I'm Dan Brooks from Intel. We've just recently joined FINOS, and it's really exciting to be part of this community. I've been involved in open source projects for about 18 months, 2 years now, across Intel Internet of Things, and would just like to put it out to the community that Intel is looking to see and understand the complexity of IoT within retail banking and how open source can be used to facilitate and support that as we see more and more technology coming into the retail branch. And it would be great to hear from you guys. So looking forward to part of the group and working with you more closely in the future.
Absolutely, and thank you very much, Daniel. And it's amazing to have Intel as part of the FINOS community, as FINOS members. Now, people will see that there's issue 98, which is highlighted in this slide, and that's also on the community repo in the FINOS organization. So if anybody's got any questions they would like to ask in that issue, feel free to go in there and ask any questions that you have in the comments, where Daniel has actually raised that issue and is the owner of that issue, and we'll really get the socialization working. I'm looking at the time, and we've got a little bit of time, and so I'm going to pause. So if anybody's got any questions for Daniel right here, right now, feel free to come off mute and ask. Maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions before moving on to the last slide. If not, that's absolutely fine. So thank you so much, Daniel, for being here today and getting involved from the FINOS community. It's really good to have the community involved in the all community call, as well as all of our projects doing updates.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to the collaboration.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And that brings us on to our Q&A and any other business. So Tosha, if I can pass the reins back to you, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, James. Yeah, so please, we can, if anyone has questions right now, we built in some time and kept to time. Thank you, James, and to everyone who spoke. Feel free to put them into chat or to come off mute and ask them now. Could be questions about any of the material presented here or anything else related to FINOS and open source and financial services. Or any suggestions or comments?
Maybe as we're waiting for people to put any questions in, we can go through the finally list, Tosha, and just introduce people to other ways
Absolutely.
to engage.
Yeah, so please do feel free to jump in with questions as I go through this. So as throughout the presentation today, we've talked about the FINOS community repository a bit in our issues, and this is within GitHub, and it's really a great place to start conversations, to raise ideas about contributions, to give ideas about meetups or podcasts. This is also where we'll have the community recognition. So increasingly, this is a place where we encourage the community to engage and have conversations. So do please feel free to go there. And in order to make sure that you hear about those conversations, it's great if you watch the repo. So for many of you, that will be obvious. For those of you who haven't spent a lot of time in GitHub, there's a little eye kind of in the top right, and you click on that and it says watch. It's pretty easy to find. But if you have any questions, you can always reach out to any of us. If you need a little bit of a GitHub refresher, we're going to be doing some training sessions. James holds office hours on a regular basis, so you can always drop into those. And all of our email addresses are on the website. So you can go to finos.org, FINOS team, and you can click on us, click on our pictures, and you can see our email addresses there. You can also email to info@finos.org, and that will always get a response, really anyway. And also, if you're not super comfortable or can't yet engage with the community through GitHub, then also feel free to send an email to community, to the community. So you can do that by sending an email to community@finos.org as well. And also just a reminder that you can see, we do want you to get involved in projects, or if you think there's a project that's missing, then please raise that as well. And you can see all of our active and incubating projects on the landscape, which is here, finos.org, landscape.finos.org. So again, have a look. Think about how to engage. It has the links to the repos in there and some information about each of the projects. And finally, if there is a project that you think you're interested in, and even if you don't know for sure, join a project meeting. I've been to many of them. James has been to many of them. Aitana goes to many of them, and it's a really friendly. They're all really friendly and welcoming. We just had a new, actually someone new join the currency reference data call yesterday, and it's very easy to just jump right in, and you don't even have to you don't have to speak or straight away, so that you can have a nice easy inroads. And that's whether you want to focus on project management, or if you're a developer, or if you're just interested in the topic. Really, there are lots of roles that need to be filled within each project. So please do jump in, or as Matt mentioned, you can raise a pull request directly, if you're already familiar with the topic. So James, is there anything I've missed? Anything else to call out?
So Graham's actually just messaged me. I'm just going to read your message, Graham, before I read it out, just in case. Okay, so this is actually a really good question. So thank you very much, Graham, for asking me. So it's James. Hi, I'm interested in the InnerSource SIG. How do I join a SIG like that? It's not obvious to me. So actually, that's a really good question. How you actually join a SIG. So just like a FINOS project, all of our SIGs are represented on GitHub. So if you want to join DevOps Mutualization, if you would like to join the Regulation Innovation SIG, the InnerSource SIG at the moment has just been contributed, so it doesn't have a repository on GitHub yet within the FINOS organization, but that will be coming soon. But if you visit any of the SIG repos, within the issues of our repos, and this also goes for FINOS projects as well, when project meetings are organized, all of the projects, all of the SIG agendas for future dates, and all of the archive for previous meetings are actually kept in the issues. And so, Graham, when the repo for the InnerSource SIG has actually been created, I'll make sure that that's emailed out through, this week of FINOS, which is kind of our weekly roundup of everything that's happening this week and also in future weeks. And then you'll be able to click through to links and see all of the agendas that are being put forward by the SIG. And so I know that Regulation Innovation and DevOps Mutualization use this method. So you'll be able to see what meetings have actually run there. Plus, I know that Cloud Service Certification and KDB, plus also Legend and other projects that have face-to-face meetings also publish their agendas and all of the cool details on GitHub as well. So just peruse around the GitHub organization, the FINOS organization on GitHub, and then you'll be able to find all up-and-coming agendas and all calling details. And all of those calls are free for people to join. So you don't have to be a FINOS member in order to join their calls. People from across the open source community can jump into those sessions and take part. And even if that's just listening, but what we will ask is that you make yourselves known to the project team who's running that meeting, so we can just keep track of all of the callers. I hope that's helped you, Graham. And thank you, Denise, for taking part in the chat as well. So we've got 5 minutes left. Thank you so much, Tosha, for your roundup of the bullets that we have on screen now. The one thing that I will also say, alongside watching the FINOS community repository, please also recognize the people around you within the FINOS community who are doing great work. So that's a great way to raise an issue, which is, kind of like a fun thing to do rather than actually raising an issue. The term issue, doesn't describe how issues are actually used in this context. But it'll be really good to hear about, all of the great work, all of the great innovation, how people are solving problems, in really kind of unique ways. And also, as we've demonstrated through the community spotlight, it doesn't have to be developers who are being recognized. We also have people from across lots of different disciplines inputting into FINOS projects and meetups and other community activities. So for anybody who's doing great things across, the FINOS community, please let us know, because we would really like to call them out and, say thank you to everybody. And so with that, Tosha, I'll pass back to you.
Can I ask a question, James?
Yeah, sure. Please do. Is that Adam?
Yeah, it's Adam. I wanted to ask what people's idea would be around maybe having more of an ad hoc way to speak to other FINOS members. Something more like an IRC or a Slack or a Rocket Chat or, whatever the popular messaging services today, because I quite liked it at the Open Source Strategy Forum, having a place to just chat to people when you've got free time. So it's just a question about that.
That's a really good question. So I'm going to answer this in a couple of ways, and anybody else from within the FINOS team, feel free to come off mute and also answer. Adam, feel free to put that question down in the FINOS community repos, so we actually, have that as something that's been aired from the community. It'd be great to put that there.
Yeah.
But also, from my experience, FINOS is unique because we're a regulated industry, and we also have members within the FINOS community that don't necessarily have access to all of those types of communication channels. And so where within maybe the FinTech community or people within the technology community, where Slack and other messaging systems are a lot easier to get on and actually use and partake in, within the banking community that is regulated both within the regulation of the actual industry and also other internal teams and approval around systems, getting access to Slack and systems that allow information to be divulged in that way isn't quite so easy. And so this is something that we are looking to solve within DevOps Mutualization, funnily enough. It's about finding that common area or space, for people to be able to have conversations. But the one thing that I would recommend is using the community repo, because GitHub is that kind of common area where people can get access to issues and also to projects. And within those issues, you can make comments. So until we kind of evolve kind of like a communication method, that uses other mechanisms around GitHub, I would actually say that feel free to use, the community repo for asking questions like the one that you asked and also the one that Daniel asked, and for people to, socialize throughout the comments. That is my experience. It's a great vantage point to get in contact with people. But if people within, FINOS, if you've got anything else that you would like to add to that answer, feel free to come off and add.
I think you're right, James. And just to, we do think it would be great to have, more ways for that ad hoc communication. And so we're continuing to look, including with the resources of the Linux Foundation, and exploring what, where they've seen success is what we can do within, again, that regulated industry. But it's a great question.
But if people within the banking community have also got any, answers to that question about how you can also communicate across external people outside of your, internal banking community, feel free to put your suggestions forward as well.
And with that, James, I think we should wrap. It's been fantastic. Thank you to everyone very much for joining. And as we mentioned, we're here for feedback, and thank you to everyone who continues to make this community a success.
Yeah, thank you everybody for being here today, and thank you to our projects and SIGs and community updates and everyone getting involved, and thank you for the questions at the end. It's really good to have a warm, welcoming community around us. So have a great day and enjoy the rest of your until the next meeting. see you on the project call.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
the best.